Hi, this is Brian Perry, Perry Home Solutions of Keller Williams Realty. I'm here with the fabulous Meg Price.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Meg. Meg has become some of an expert in emotional support animals and homeowners associations and restrictions and things of that nature, haven't you, Meg?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a growing issue, as we're finding out slowly but surely.
Well, and we've been dealing with it a lot lately too.
We
right?
have.
So Meg has done extensive research. She's consulted our attorneys and various other sources to bring us as much good information about what buyers and sellers and everybody should know about these things. So Meg, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, first question. When you are renting, do you have to disclose the fact that you have a service animal?
It is always best, from everything I'm researching, is to be as clear as possible as what's going on. So what we have to understand is that a service animal is not a pet. First and foremost, you have to understand that the pet clauses that are in HOAs does not concern a service animal, an emotional support animal, I should say. A service animal is different. A service animal is someone that has a special disability and they need a dog or an animal that helps them with that disability.
So a service animal is an animal for somebody who has maybe a physical disability or something?
Yes.
They're the ones that wear the vests and
Yes,
things, right?
that's how it identifies a service animal. An emotional support animal is for something that your doctor has diagnosed you with a disability. You have that documentation from the doctor stating that you have this disability, and that they say that you may have an animal to help with those symptoms. And you can have multiple animals that are emotional support animals. It doesn't have to be just one. You may have different symptoms, and you have a cat for one symptom and a dog for another, and they both work together to help you with your issues. So when going to an HOA or renting, you need to be open and honest and say, this is what's going on. I have an emotionally support animal, and it is not to be treated as a pet.
And I don't want to skip too far ahead here, but just so we're clear, if you have an emotional support animal, there has to be a certain type of documentation with that, right?
It has to be from a healthcare provider, okay? It's not something you purchase on the internet. It's not a certificate. It's not a card or anything like that. This is something that you have a letter from your healthcare provider, your doctor, stating that you need an emotionally support animal, and that you're asking the HOA or the rental place for a reasonable accommodation for this animal.
And to be clear, when you say healthcare provider, it has to be a doctor.
Yes.
Right?
I believe so.
You can't, in other words, there's what Meg's saying as well, there's websites out there that say pay us a couple $100 and we'll send you the special certificate
Correct.
or card. That doesn't count.
Right.
You have to go to an actual doctor. Mm-hmm. That doctor has to write you an official, like I guess, prescription or something of that nature, right?
Basically,
a letter.
Yeah, just saying that you are in need of a emotional support animal. You have been diagnosed with a disability.
And they don't have to say what the disability is.
No,
they just have to say there is a reason and
yes.
I authorize it
yes.
as the doctor or whatever.
And you also can show if you are receiving disability from the government, a form of a paycheck from them. You can show any kind of thing like that. You can show your papers where you got approval from the local, federal, or state government agency saying that you are a disabled person and you need an emotional support animal. So these are really clear and concise lines. The Florida statutes were changed in July of this year, stating a more defined definition of what emotional support animals are, because a lot of people get confused. The Fair Housing Act and HUD have come out with a guideline also, which you can find online. It's extremely helpful, and it gives you lots of information and identifies questions that you need answered. The most clear thing that you have to understand, and you should always be honest with who you're speaking with, because they need to understand that you have a disability.
Well, let's dive into a couple specific scenarios then. Private owners. So I guess when we're talking about private owners, we're talking about owners of a home you're renting, maybe?
I believe that would be something like that. Just say you're a for sale by owner in an HOA. Someone's selling their home within the HOA. You still have to go by the HOA guidelines.
Right.
Even though the owner says, well, I don't care, you know, it still has to be, if you live in an HOA, you have to go by their guidelines.
But the laws that exist, and especially the amendments they made in July, say that if it is a legitimate emotional support animal and it has the correct documentation from a doctor, they can't deny it.
No.
They cannot.
No.
If the home now
what they can do is, they can say, well, we have to have more questions answered, and it starts a dialogue, and that's what HUD wants to see. They want to make sure.
They can't ask what the underlying ailment is, though.
No.
Right?
They cannot.
Right. So I think it's important for people to hear that, because there's always a lot of questions about emotional support animals and things like that, and we've actually seen people get denied by HOAs, and the reason is because they didn't have the correct documentation.
Correct.
However, if you do have the correct documentation, there are all kinds of laws that support you and say they can't. In other words, what you're saying is, if you're selling your house as a for sale by owner in an HOA and you say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this, you don't have a choice.
Right.
This is a protected circumstance by the government, right?
Yes, it is. You can have a parrot. You can have a horse. I'm not joking. There's people out there that have multiple animals that are different stuff. A bearded dragon.
Oh my God.
You know, so it's not about, your homeowner's insurance always has, do you have an aggressive breed dog? We're going to higher your rates. It's possible.
Goodness.
They cannot do this because it is not a pet.
And last one, can I have more than one emotional support animal?
Yes. So if you live in a community, just say it allows you one pet, you have a golden retriever, but then you have 2 emotional support animals because you have 2 symptoms and each animal does something different. So your pet is your golden retriever, and your support animals could be, like I said, a bearded dragon and we'll say an iguana, just to be weird.
Wow, that'd be a weird one. That'd be super weird. Okay, well, thank you, Meg. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
So what I learned, bottom line is, for one thing, an emotional support animal has to have the correct documentation from an actual doctor that you visited and has diagnosed you and has designated you a recipient of a emotional support animal.
Correct.
And people cannot deny you the emotional support animal in any context in real estate that I'm aware of, including renting. However, you should be upfront with them.
Yes.
You should provide them with the documentation, and you should tell them immediately when you have an emotional support animal.
Right.
Right?
Yes. And also, one thing, if you live in a community that you've lived in already for a long time and they have a pet policy, and all of a sudden you're getting an emotional support animal, you need to be honest and let them know, I have just been diagnosed and I need an emotionally support animal. You need to please give me some form of accommodation for them. So the HOA is aware that you didn't bring the dog or cat or whatever in illegally. It is an emotional support animal. And one last thing, which is really important, people out there try to fake that they have something wrong with them, and that's, I think, what has caused this to be such a heightened topic, is that people can go out and get a $50 certificate saying they have something and they don't. If you are caught doing that and it's fraudulent, you can get a misdemeanor on your record.
Wow.
And you will end up paying a fine and possibly do community service and things like that. So
wow.
It's really not worth all that just to have a pet.
And many HOAs that we've been dealing with lately have attorneys that review the documentation.
Yes.
So you can't mess with it, because if you try to skate around it,
right,
they're probably going to find out. And I wasn't aware of that.
Right.
There's penalties like that.
Yeah.
So yikes.
So
be careful.
when writing your letter to the HOA telling them that you have an emotionally support animal, be open, be honest, tell them what's going on, but they do not need to know any details of your disability.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Meg Price. I appreciate you sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. And if you guys have any questions on any of this, please call us at Perry Home Solutions, and or for any of your other real estate needs, of course. We're dealing with this very frequently. We'd love to walk you through the whole process. Thank you. Bye.